What? There is no way we're going to license all those songs to you. Sitting downtown Austin, Texas, about ready to enjoy 6 chocolate-covered donuts. And I thought I'd share a story with you about the Heaven's Metal Collection. The Heaven's Metal Collection came out in 1993, I think. It was a 2-disc or 2-tape box set that had 31 hand-selected Christian heavy metal songs on it. And I went through, I started off with the Resurrection Band, a song from Awaiting Your Reply. And I see wave after wave of people on the beach, on the street. And then had Jerusalem, Sodom. It had Striper. Now, Striper's song, From Wrong to Right, had never been digitally released. It only came out on vinyl and cassette back in 1984. But you say, what about the Yellow and Black Attack remastered version? You mean the messed up, ruined version? Yeah, I said that. I think a lot of people agree with me. The vinyl looked really cool. It was kind of a die-cut, round-shaped vinyl sleeve jacket that surrounded the album, and the artwork was touched up a little bit. But the mastering and the remastering or remix of those songs sounded so light and tame compared to the original biting guitar, piercing through the night guitar tones that the first had. I requested from Hollywood Records, who owned the rights to Striper in 1991, 92, 93. And they got me a DAT tape of From Wrong to Right from the original Yellow and Black Attack sessions. So this Heaven's Metal Collection was worth it for that song alone. But it had 31 handpicked songs, had Daryl Mansfield, Jesus Will Reign, I think, was on there. It had Mortification. It didn't have One Bad Pig on it. My best buddy, Paul Kupek, one of my best buddies, really blasted me for that. Why didn't you include One Bad Pig? And had to apologize, picking 31 songs out of 1 million Christian metal bands is a tough thing to do, and but I did it anyway. This compilation album, which included a booklet, it had a really nice kind of a tiger striped motif to it with gold foil imprinting on it. Really beautiful packaging. It should have got a Devil Award nomination, you know it. Anyway, it had a booklet that had interviews with all 31 bands. And so that was really fun to put together. It had photos and interviews, little miniature articles about each band that was on it. But this compilation almost died in the water when I think it was Jackie Patillo, who was Leon Patillo's wife, who worked at Star Song at the time. She worked at Star Song, Pure Metal Records, who was releasing this compilation. She was in charge of going after the licensing and taking care of the publishing rights and licensing rights over all 31 songs. When she came to Frontline/Intense Records, she was on the phone, I guess, with Mike McLean of Frontline/Intense Records. And he was like, well, no, we really don't want to give you the rights to these songs. We were going to release our own Christian heavy metal compilation, kind of a historic compilation called An Intense Look at Christian Metal, or an Intense Christian Metal, which did come out as a single tape, single disc release. And they didn't want to, have to have the same songs on 2 different albums. They wanted to have their own compilation, stand on its own, not have competition out there. But Jackie Patillo, to her credit, I believe, went to bat for me and Heaven's Metal and said, look, this is the Heaven's Metal Collection, a box set that Doug Van Pelt is hand selecting. You've got to let us do this. If we don't have all these songs on it, which if you look at that box set, you count out the number of those songs that are on Intense/Frontline Records, it was a large section of it. And so, thankfully, Mike McLean and Frontline Records relented and licenses those songs for this compilation, which was a great way of them looking at the big picture. You know, another mini story within a story here. Maybe I could tell this as a separate video someday, but Sacred Warrior, when Wicked Generation came out, Intense Frontline Records, they flew music buyers from major chains. They flew media people like Brian Quincy Newcomb, John Thompson of True Tunes, which I think was going at the time. He already lived in Chicago. They just didn't have to fly him there. It's a popular mural. Anyway, they didn't have to fly everybody there, but they flew a bunch of people there. And so it was a big event. And nobody ever talked to me during the event and said, "Hey, Doug, are you going to do a story on the Wicked Generation? Are you going to put Sacred Warrior on the cover of the next issue?" And you know what? I didn't even think about it. I was just naively thinking about whatever I was thinking about at the time. We didn't do a story on Sacred Warrior. And that would have been like an insult to a lot of record companies. But I think in the meeting, one of my buddies, Tony Shore, told me later on, they said, "You know what? When the new issue of Heaven's Metal arrived and they all looked at it," which was kind of a unique privilege that Heaven's Metal magazine had, as a record company, people were looking at it as soon as the issue arrived in the mail, which is quite an honor. And somebody said, "Hey, they didn't do a story on Sacred Warrior," and we flew Doug all the way out to Chicago, put him up in a nice hotel, took him to the last Chicago White Sox game in Comiskey Park, and took him to the studio to meet Sacred Warrior. Didn't even do an article on it, but somebody with a cool mind said, "Hey, but they did do a story on this and this and this and this and all these other artists and all these album reviews." And so they realized the big picture was, you know, Heaven's Metal is giving our label a lot of coverage. So going back to the Heaven's Metal collection box set, they were constantly getting coverage from us. And so bickering or fighting over one little exclusion or one little oversight was not in their best interest, according to them. So that was really cool that they thought that way. They thought big picture instead of squabbling over every single conflict that could come up. They look at the bigger picture and said, "You know what? We've got a great relationship with Heaven's Metal, and we're going to keep it going. We're just going to let this slide." And so there's some good advice for life. When conflict comes up, pause for a moment and think about, what's the big picture here? Is it worth it to squabble over this? Is this a battle I want to, make? I want to choose my battles wisely, a wise person said. Choose where they're going to die in battle. Anyway, so that's my story for the day. It also reminds me of a time where Pastor Bob told me, "Can you please take down that video? I don't think we want to die on this hill for this issue." And so I took it down. And Pastor Bob had similar posts on a topic that just got a lot of grief over, and wanted to spare me that grief, wanted to spare Sanctuary International Matrix that grief, and just not bring that subject up again. And Lust Control wrote songs about it, so enough people are talking about it, or got enough attention on its own. So hey, watch this commercial for my book Rockstars on God Volume 3 and get the book. It's awesome.
Rockstars on God, caught in the fire, searching for me.